So it's my great pleasure to welcome you for this new ASTP European Union Forum. This is the fourth one, and we are just building on the very nice interactions we created with the Commission. And so during this session today, we will have the chance to talk about the valorization policies, of course, as seen on the program. And it's my great pleasure to welcome first Ioannis Sagias from the unit Valorization Policies and IP Rights. And that's a unit being part of the DG for Research and Innovation. Ioannis is going to talk about the state and the current state of the valorization policies and the codes of practices. And so after that, we will have some presentation from participants to the community of practice who actually worked on the guidelines and on the code of practice, and they will bring some feedback about this work. So please, Ioannis, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Christoph. It's really nice to be one more time with the ASTP and the ASTP Forum. And as last time, I would like to give you an update where we stand with the knowledge valorization policies. So I will share my screen now. Share screen or a PDF file, it says. Just do the share the screen. Can you all see the presentation now?
Yes.
Okay. So my name is Yannis Ayas, and I work in the Unit for Valorization Policies in DG Research and Innovation. And I would like to explain to you where we stand with the knowledge valorization policies and the respective policy initiatives that we have taken throughout 2022. So again, we like to start with what knowledge valorization is, which is a very nice definition we have created. It was not our intention to introduce another term into the English language. No, we believe that knowledge valorization is something that really deserves to be in the landscape of the knowledge that we are creating through research and innovation. And basically what we mean with knowledge valorization is creating more value from the knowledge we create from the investment in research and innovation. And of course, it starts with the results that we are gaining and the knowledge we're gaining through the research. Then we use several valorization channels that could be spanning from IP management to standardization practices to policy uptake to industry academia collaboration. And this actually can create more products, services, processes. It can spark social innovation. It can nurture intellectual property and its rights. And these are the valorization outputs. And then we can have greater impact, prosperity, jobs, health, skills. And all of these things are the ones that actually we try to make sure that they are reflected into the policy papers and the respective activities like the guiding principles for knowledge valorization. This is the famous slide that I like. I'm sure that some of you have seen it so many times that you get completely sick and tired of it. However, I like it a lot because it simply gives in one slide what we're trying to do. On one hand, we have the main actors for valorization, for using the knowledge that we're creating. Then in the middle, we have the channels that we have identified, not thinking that this is an exhaustive list of channels. We believe that there might be more, or these channels can be broken down into other channels that could be more specified. And on the other hand, we have specific tools that we can use in some of these channels, not meaning that some of the tools cannot be good for serving more than one channels. So as you see, the IP management, standardization, the industry academia collaboration is among the defined channels, the channels that already exist. And allow me to say that when we speak about knowledge valorization, we don't speak about something new. Most of the activities under knowledge valorization already exist. It's a new way to represent all of them into one policy that can be easily understood by everyone by everyone. Sorry about that. Apologies, my mistake. So it's another way to put it into the policy document, so we can have a common understanding about what we are delivering in Europe. And with the guiding principles for knowledge valorization, we believe that at least we have the common understanding at the level of the member states. So what we did back in 1920, we did a policy review to put all of these channels into one policy review, into one paper that pretty much defines the work that we started doing back in 2019, 2020, and what we continue doing. The idea is to have, for example, for every valorization channel, to have at least one key tool that demonstrates how we can valorize the knowledge. Then what came recently is the SRIP report, the Science, Research and Innovation report. And in my previous presentation in the ASTP, I think I've used some elements of the SRIP report that was not published at that point, but it was published now. And it shows that we are still, we're doing better comparing with some years ago, but still we're lagging behind the rest of the world. It seems that in other parts of the world, somehow they manage to do a bit better when it comes to valorizing the results from the research. And of course, that's a 2018 measurement. We believe that certain things have changed since then, but that's a very good indication of where we stand. This is also another thing that demonstrates from the SRIP report that demonstrates where we stand in terms of gaps in between the EU regions, in between the Union. So there's a bit of imbalance there. And this is not something that really can continue like that. So we really need to do a lot about these things. Therefore, we have initiatives like the new European Innovation Agenda that will try to amend these problems and close these gaps. But it's not an easy thing. And as you see, it's something that continues in Europe. We might have closed a bit the delta, but still there is a lot to be done. And here you see that, at least from the numbers, might not be what we believe. But I think that here the numbers do not lie. When it comes to the potential for innovation, the bigger the company is, the better the potential. And this is something which is constantly proven throughout the numbers in the Union. So again, things that we really need to do. Now, of course, Europe is not lagging behind in everything. We are leading in a lot of things, and we like leading. We like to have the top patent applicants in transport. We still have the best place in climate and environment and energy. So in the things that we're really actually concerned right now, if you take into account the political situation, I think that Europe still does very well, and it's placed right in the center of the developments. So what we need is just to make sure that at least the excellent knowledge we are creating does not continue to fuel the European paradox, and we just make a bit more in our valorization. And this is what we just realize, is that we need to promote a culture of knowledge valorization in all research and innovation systems in the Union. So, and it's important to start from a European level and then demonstrate how the paradigm shift needs to be in all member states. So back to what we did in ERA. So having said all this, that knowledge valorization is an essential part for research and innovation. This was reflected into the European Research Area. So back in 2020, the European Research Area came up with an action plan. And in this action plan, we have Action 7 dedicated to create guiding principles for knowledge valorization and create 2 codes of practice. 1 code of practice for intellectual asset management and 1 code of practice for researchers on standardization. You have seen this slide again back in March. And what we did since then, back then it was only in the making, but now we are moving very fast into the adoption of council recommendations for these guiding principles. Actually, this Friday, in the COMPET Council under the Czech presidency, there will be the formal adoption of these guiding principles. So We started with the 2008 Commission recommendation, which was outdated. It was addressing only intellectual property and knowledge transfer activities. And since then, a lot of things have changed. So we really needed to update that recommendation and make sure that we have all the things that are currently into place reflected into this policy paper. And instead of issuing a Commission recommendation, we believe that by going to a Council recommendation will ensure a better buy-in, and this is actually the case. I have to admit that through the process of discussing with the Member States into the Research Working Party, into the Council, made our proposal better and made it a bit more pragmatic and reflecting the reality of the Member States. So we really believe that these guiding principles that come out as Council recommendations this Friday will be something that can be easier to implement. So what we try to do is to broaden the scope, include more actors, not only the academic institutions. We want to address the whole R&I ecosystem and the connections that it has and the co-creation between these actors, to widen the scope of intellectual property to intellectual asset management, and see also intellectual assets that are not protected, for example, that are not property of somebody, that how we can actually use them, and require member states and policymakers to align the national policies, the local regional policies also with these principles. So we have these are the elements that we cover with the guiding principles. This comes directly from the Commission proposal. Certain things have changed, but not much. But since it's not adopted yet, I cannot give you the final text, which we will be happy to distribute actually as of Friday noon to every stakeholder. So we speak about knowledge valorization in R&I. We speak also about what needs to be done on skills and capacities, what should be the incentive systems, and what we can do on intellectual asset management. How can we fund this kind of valorization activities, and how we can embed peer learning into the valorization? Because, as I said before, most of the knowledge valorization channels exist. Most of the knowledge valorization activities already been done. ASTP is a proof of that. What we need to increase is to know a bit more what our peers are doing. And I'm sure that our peers are doing a lot of good things throughout Europe, even in other parts of the world that we simply don't know, or we don't know enough. So we really need to know more of what exactly is happening out there. Therefore, the knowledge valorization platform was also created. And we need to provide some decent metrics, monitoring and evaluation for the guiding principles. As I said before, the guiding principles do not come alone, because as soon as you go to the member states and say, I have new principles for you that I would like you to recommend to all member states, the first question is that, okay, how can I implement them? The answer is that implementation is already being done because, again, for the third time, knowledge valorization activities exist. If it's knowledge transfer, it already exists. If it's industry-academia collaboration, it already exists. What we try to do is see if there is any novel way to approach these existing practices, and also provide practical guidance in the form of code of practice that practitioners can take and use in their hands-on tasks daily. So the first code of practice is on intellectual asset management. And this comes, I like this slide because it gives also an idea of where the rest of the world is going. And when it comes to intellectual property management, intellectual asset management, we see that there are a lot of activities at international level. WIPO actually trying to create and make such kind of guidance for universities. Then you see that Australia, which is well advanced in the industry academia collaboration, wanted to have a new commercialization framework. And actually, they give a lot of effort into that by taking also practices from other parts of the world and injecting them into the national policy. What the US did also, the memorandum with the guidelines to ensure free, immediate, and equitable access to federally funded research. So again, the public funded or the federal funded research should be treated differently in the way that the results are being managed. And the last is the experience from Japan, that it really goes one step further. And in a very industrial country, actually, it imposes more freedom to managing the IP from third parties or from the universities themselves if there's no interest from the industry. And there's new guidelines actually going to be issued later in 2023. So all of this shows that at least we are on the same line with the rest of the world in providing some guidance to reflect how we need to manage our IP, both at national, European, but also at the international level. And you know very well that this code of practice is part of ERA. We had the community of practice, which we were very happy to have lots of you participating in the community of practice and giving your time and effort in creating this code together with us. The community of practice, I think it was the first time that it was used for such a big effort to co-create something bottom-up. And this is something that I think innovates inside the Commission. And the idea is to go back, as soon as this code of practice becomes now a Commission recommendation, to go back and present this code to the rest of the community and also to the pen holders of the various chapters and see and actually discuss together how this code can be taken and used, how this code can be part of your daily practices. So a few things about the content, because again we cannot speak about this in detail because it will be a Commission recommendation that we expect this to be adopted in the beginning of 2023. It's a bit slight in the timing. Back in March, I told you that it will be ready by the end of the year. But okay, European institutions have their own bureaucracy and their own procedures, so they will take a bit longer. But it doesn't mean that we're not ready. And as you see, we have these parts, as you probably remember, the ones that you participated in the making of, that we have the definition of strategic intellectual asset management practices, and we advocate how to manage these assets in open science and open innovation environments, what kind of investments we need to do in education, training, awareness raising. We advocate also the ownership element, and of course, how we collaborate inside and outside the research world. And of course, whatever tools we can find in order to help us go the last mile from the research, from the lab to the market, and of course having valuations, having monitoring, transferring, licensing practices. So this is the content. You will see that the chapters are a bit changed comparing with what we have last discussed with the community of practice. But this is, of course, inevitable because since it will become a Commission recommendation, it needs to go through the filter and through the brushing of the Commission services. The other code I mentioned was the Code of Practice on Standardization for Researchers. I will go fast through it because I know that it's of interest for you, but it is not a code that I think it's not in the core of the ASTP. However, I think it will be quite useful to see that this is mostly addressing beneficiaries of Horizon. And of course, it affects the rest of the RNI community, but it's certainly are guidelines for projects that actually make standardization, or they are involved in standardization activities, or they would like to create standards. So there are recommendations for beneficiaries, there are recommendations for the projects, and also for policymakers. And you can have at the level of higher education institutions, you can have at project level, and especially when we're talking about Horizon funded projects, and a policy stakeholder. And of course, this is kind of the recommendations. Again, these recommendations will change because right now we're in the so-called inter-service consultation, where all Commission services will be asked to give their comments into these codes. But you can see that there are specific recommendations at the level of the academic institution, or the research and technology organizations, at project level, and policy and stakeholders. What are the next steps? We have as I said, the adoption both of the codes as Commission recommendations in the beginning of next year. And then these two will be part of an awareness raising campaign, which I will just say a bit more about it in a second. but these codes will be Commission recommendations and will be there for everybody to download and use it accordingly. What we foresee for 2023 is, as I said, for every valorization channel, we would like to demonstrate that there is at least one tool that demonstrates how the implementation can be done, the implementation of knowledge valorization. So we would like to create another code for industry academia collaboration, another code that demonstrates the participatory value creation, so participatory innovation, the citizen engagement, the civil society engagement. And these are planned for 2023. Now, I mentioned that we would like to raise awareness on the guiding principles and the codes of practice. So we do have an awareness raising campaign coming up, and we will actually have the call for expression of interest to member states and stakeholders next week. And we would like everybody to express their interest to participate. It's a participation both for the organization and attending it. So if somebody wants to participate in the organization, because there will be a tour of the EU capitals, we expect local actors, national or regional actors, to participate, and they can actually help Commission define the program of each of these events together. And we can make this program and include trainings, webinars, any kind of dissemination activities or communication that you have in mind that are relevant, of course, to the guiding principles and the two codes of practice. And that will start in 2023 and will go at least for 18 months to cover all EU member states. And now, what we do, a few words, what we do with engagement with member states, stakeholders, and society. I mentioned before the knowledge valorization platform, which for us is a very good tool that demonstrates the best practices that exist around the Union. And it's eye-opening for us because we realize that there are so many good things happening all over Europe that it's a pity not to have them, not to know them, and not to actually try to replicate them, or at least to spread the knowledge to other parts of the Union, therefore closing the gap I mentioned before. So we do have a repository of best practices. We do have dedicated pages that allow you to engage, like in the call for expression of interest for the awareness raising campaign, or also see interesting reports which are related to knowledge valorization, like a study that we did recently about how knowledge valorization can be achieved through arts and culture. And it's really nice to see that it's not only valorization through, let's say, intellectual property or policy making, but we can actually use more channels. We had the Knowledge Valorization Week, and this for 2023 is scheduled for the end of April. We have a lot of participants, a lot of countries, and we would really like to have you and your practices and your experiences participating in the week. There will be a call for the best practices. Every year we celebrate the best of these practices into the Knowledge Valorization Week. And for the end of the week this year, we plan specific trainings or webinars. So I think that even ASTP can participate as a whole into the Knowledge Valorization Week and deliver something which would be very interesting for the participants. And of course, we have a mutual learning exercise on knowledge valorization. The idea is to spread the word about knowledge valorization and see what is happening in member states, and try to take the knowledge from one member state and try to pass it to another, thus helping the understanding and the implementation of the guiding principles in the year to come. So we will launch it in 2023, in the beginning of 2023. We have already a lot of member states participating, and we expect that this number will grow. And finally, what we do with industry academia collaboration. We did, as you probably know, that was in my previous presentation to ASTP, that we did a study about industry academia collaboration and how we can use facilitator platforms for that. And we realized that through this feasibility study, to use intermediaries and facilitators actually really works very well in this collaboration. And for the first time, we need to care a bit more about the industry needs, about the market needs. And what we are planning is exactly that, to have specific, we do have specific topics in the work program. One was about new industry academia knowledge exchange focusing on company needs, and the other was communities of expert facilitators to improve industry academia co-creation. These are specific topics that will kick off, these will be projects that will be kicked off soon in 2023. And what we are planning for the future work program 2023 is how we can have a project that will do service delivery on the intellectual asset management support for public research organizations and the spin-off, and to create a toolbox for efficient IP licensing for market uptake and societal value creation. And these will be cooperation and support actions from the work program 23 and 24 from Horizon, which of course I guess it will be very interesting for ASTP, and will be also just one project to demonstrate how it can be done. So it's not the end of the whole story. I guess it's the beginning of these chapters of these subjects, because we really want as Commission to put our money where our mouth is. And finally, I say it once again that we really want to develop a new code of practice for industry academia co-creation. This closes the presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. Sorry if I have taken more time. And Christoph,
That's fine. That's fine. I think we are back in time, if I'm not mistaken. So
I was quite
thanks a lot.
fast, right?
No, it was really interesting and really dense. Thanks a lot for this very complete overview. I think we have time to take some questions, if I'm not mistaken. Just a technical question. Can I see the questions actually in the chat, or will they be sent in another way? That's a question for the technical team, if you can answer me. Meanwhile, I would have some comments and questions. I can see something here in the chat. Okay. Okay. So while we wait for the question from the audience, I will comment first about something that we've been working a lot on, which is the indicators. I understand we still use the patterns as indicators because it's easy, etc. But I find there is a very high emphasis on the patterns, and so to demonstrate that we are back from China and the USA. But when we talk to our colleagues in Autumn or in China, in Asian networks, they actually face the same issues as we do. So eventually, the macroeconomic figures might show that we are back compared to them. But how can we correlate this with our knowledge transfer activities? I think this is really an issue, because we all know knowledge valorization is not only about patterns. So what are your thoughts about that, Ioannis?
Yeah, this is it is really difficult when it comes to the metrics, and it's really difficult basically to convince member states about the metrics and changing something that they have been doing for a lot of time. So the idea behind there is indeed what you said, Christoph, to go beyond the patterns and have more metrics contributing to measuring how actually knowledge valorization is being done. And how we intend to do that. First of all, I have to inform you that when we stood in front of the member states for the council recommendations, the chapter on the metrics and the monitoring and evaluation was attacked. Like, okay, what exactly you expect member states to do? These are huge investments. This is practices that have been there for a long time. We give this data in Eurostat. We give this data into OECD. Why to change and what to change? So we took a step back and said, okay, fine, let's start together with studying which kind of indicators we have already, existing indicators, which is not about patents only. I mean, you have, for example, industry academia co-publications. That's another indicator that shows how the industry academia collaboration works. So there are actually a lot of metrics out there which were just never put together. And let's say, okay, let's see what exists. What needs to be further developed for channels that we haven't, I mean, we do not have enough metrics for policy uptake from research and innovation. We don't have this evidence-based policy making, let's say, crystallized how this can be taken up in a monitoring environment. So we really need to work together, and Commission actually would like the member states to allow us to do the necessary study and come up with either new indicators, existing indicators, or a composite indicator that can help knowledge valorization metrics. We know that very well, Christophe, and indeed, it's something that we would really like your help also, because you collect a lot of data. You collect a lot of data, and you do an excellent job with JRC. So certainly, you are not only the starting point, you are a pillar in this work. So we'd like to work more with you.
Thanks a lot, Yanis. There is a question actually a bit related to this from Lee, who says, I don't know if you can read it, Yanis. He said, I was surprised about the finding about larger companies and innovation. So it's a question of definition of innovation. And of course, there was no differentiation made between incremental and radical or disruptive innovation. So do you know more about this study?
Well, this is included in the SRIP report, and to be honest, I know that this slide is quite controversial because I told you this is not how things look like. This is what the numbers show. And in the European landscape, because we're talking about incremental innovation mostly, the disruptive, I think with the disruptive innovation, things are different, but we do not have that many examples in the Union. When it comes to incremental innovation, the larger the company is, the better the potential for incremental innovation. For disruptive, is completely different. I wouldn't say exactly the opposite, but it's different than that. And that is exactly where the EU paradox lies, that we do not have such good demonstrators of rapid and disruptive innovations that come from completely small and medium enterprises here and there in the Union. Well, I know that this slide, probably we need to go back. I don't remember very well what is exactly the chapter in the SRIP, but when I read it, it struck me, and that's why I created this slide. But I know it's the second time I presented it. It's the second time I received question exactly on that. So probably I need to go back, and thank you for this.
Okay, thanks. We have other questions, and thanks for the technical team for showing the questions. So this is the first question of them on the chat about the development of industry academic collaboration. So you indicated, Ioannis, there will be some calls, open calls, yeah.
Yes. So the idea is that we had also for the work program 2022 some topics under specific calls under cluster 4 under industry that dealt with the industry academia collaboration, and we wanted basically to check what we did with the intermediaries and the facilitators platform to see if this actually can become a project, a CSA, a collaboration and support action to demonstrate how it can be done. And for the 2024, we have that. It's the last slide. I don't know if you can hear me, but I see my face frozen in the screen.
I am the only one to get some issues with your sound.
Okay. Give me stuff. Okay. We had an issue with
I'm sorry, I don't hear you, Ioannis, anymore. I don't think it is my issue on my side. Yeah, okay. So apparently there is technical issue with that. Ioannis, we cannot hear you actually. It's better.
Apparently. Yeah, I think now I think I'm back. I think I see now my face on the screen, and and I can hear you. So okay, good. And
okay, so we missed the last sentences.
Yeah. So in the last slide in the presentation, which I will be happily sharing with you, you will see the two new topics that we have on industry academia collaboration for 23-24. And there we try to, as I said, we try to create a toolbox, an IP toolbox that can help basic academic institutions to do better collaborations. And the other is to provide support to academic institutions and their spin-offs for their IP management. Again, this is not let's say one project and it will let's say one pill to cure all diseases. It's just a demonstrator. It's just a project that will demonstrate how this can be done. And of course, as I said, Commission likes to put the money where our mouth is. So if we like to talk about specific valorization channels, we like to demonstrate it with a specific topic in the work program.
Okay, thanks. So in any case, we will let the community know about the calls to come. We got other questions. So Mariana asks, which industry stakeholders will be considered for the activity you mentioned for next year? So have you already identified some industry stakeholders?
It can be any industry. It can be from any European industry. It can be energy, it can be transport, it can be automotive, it can be anything that, you know how it goes. Then you think of a specific example that you would like to demonstrate. You work with a particular industry, you just submit a proposal. It doesn't, there's no favorable industry there.
Okay. So there is no pre-selection actually.
Yes, an actor.
All right. I think we lost you again. Mm-hmm. You can keep your picture. It's a nice picture. If that's better for the bande passante. Okay, while you get back to us, I will read another question from Santiago. Hi, Santiago. Do you expect a change in the role of the TDO as a consequence of these guidelines?
Yes, we would like to see a change. And sorry about that because I had the technical problem. Also, just to wrap it up, Christoph. Yes, there's no pre-selection
Okay.
of the in the calls. Yes, we would like to see a change in the role of the tech transfer offices. The guiding principles actually say that we really need to have skills that address the knowledge valorization. So in this respect, the tech transfer offices need to be more strengthened, empowered to be able to deliver more on knowledge valorization. And the idea is to have there the necessary skills, the necessary tools, the necessary funding if needed, and also the necessary framework for the tech transfer offices to act as knowledge valorization agents. And this is something that we have discussed already, Christoph. And you know that for us, it's really important to celebrate the existing of tech transfer offices and the work that they are doing and empower them, because I believe that there's much more that can be done.
Thanks. I think that will be milk and honey to our community ears, and I think this is really important to go on with the capacity building and improving the skills of the community. So thanks a lot for this precision. I have another question. So you are talking about producing new codes. Will you use the same method, basically, gathering the community?
Yes. We realized that the community of practice, it's maybe one of the most laborious exercises for a commission, because if it includes more than 150 people in a community, you can imagine that takes a lot of effort to moderate these. But it was so rich as an experience that we would like to replicate that. And at least for the participatory value creation code, this, because we're talking about citizen engagement, we're talking about civil society and cities, we believe that there is no other way to go. But community of practice is the way to go. For the industry academia collaboration, simply because we do have a lot of studies on that, and there's a lot of reports already made. Probably we start from a different level, and there the community might be a bit more, let's say, not that big, I would say, but again, it will be a working group around this in the form of a community, of course, but maybe not as wide as it was for the code of practice for the intellectual asset management, or as we expect to be for the citizen engagement.
Okay, thanks. I see a last question, and then we will go through the next session. A question from Anne, talking about the acknowledgement of valorization in the researcher CV. Okay, and I think we are going actually to talk about this incentives, which is a link to incentives in the next session. Maybe Arlita, you can show the question. This is the last one. But I'm not sure Ioannis is going to answer now.
I read it. Yes, I think it's a very valid point.
We got another sound issue with you, Ioannis.
I have to apologize for this bad technical from coverage from my side.
We lost you.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Not good. Not good. Not good.
So, are we back?
Yes. Now.
Good. Okay. Regarding the question from Anne.
Okay.
Okay. About the assessment. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Go on.
Okay. Okay. So about the research assessment, you know that there is this initiative from the Commission to change the researchers assessment, and they've issued this call for signatories. And I think that the more signatures we gather, the more we that this needs to change. At least the Commission has demonstrated that wants to do this change, to change the way we evaluate researchers.
Okay.
I have the impression that
okay, thanks, Ioannis. I think
the what comes from our colleagues
to stop because the sound is really
you
bad.
lost me.
I'm sorry. Yeah, we lost you again.
So
And
maybe I should switch off my camera.
yeah, but in any case, the time is
my
now.
camera.
The time is now almost finished for this presentation, so I have to thank you. But I would like to offer to the community the possibility to answer to some questions. So we are launching a call. No, not a call, sorry, a poll, a sondage. So then I don't know about the way to do that, Alita. I'm just maybe reading the questions. Is that the right way to do that? Or will you show the question and then people can just vote? And while waiting for the answer, I would like again to thank you, Ioannis, a lot for this presentation and the very nice overview also about IP management. So thanks a lot for your presentation, and of course we keep in touch, and you are much welcome, of course, to stay now, and we are working together, as everybody knows. Okay, here comes the poll now. Here comes the poll. Da, 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 da. So the first question is: Are you aware? So the first question for you, audience, is: Are you aware of the guiding principles? So I guess you can just you click on it and vote. Very efficient. All right, I don't see the answer yet. I think people are still voting now. While you just end up your vote, I can prepare you for the next questions. The next question is about the code of practice. So the technical team, are we ready with the first question? Are we done with the first question already? Okay, I will read the next question. That's about the ongoing process of the preparation of the code of practice for the smart use of IP. So this is a multiple. Okay, here it comes. Multiple choice. So either you didn't know about it, or you just heard about it, or you are following the process, or you are an active participant. So please give your advice on that. And the next question is a simple one, and this is the last one. Do you think these documents will help in improvement of the KT, I would say, in Europe or in your TTO or in your, I don't know exactly what the end of the question is. It's probably in Europe, yeah. And that's a very different question from would that help you in your daily job? But the question is about Europe. So do you think globally this is positive or not? And I guess our marvelous technical team, they are really incredible, it's amazing. We'll show the final results of the poll, I guess. Okay, there we go again to the first question. So I guess this is for showing the results, I guess. So actually, I don't see the results. I don't know if I'm the only one. Yeah. So we don't see the results. Maybe if it's not possible to show them, as it is a very simple presentation, maybe you can just let us know what is the figure for the yes and the no. Oh, that's an interesting. It looks like a French election. Actually, it's 48. 48.8% of yes and 51 no. So let's consider this is half-half, okay? I don't know if this is a good result, actually. So half of the people didn't know about were not aware of this guiding principle. So that's a good point. So at least today we will have dozens of persons made aware. All right. So could you then please show the results or tell us the results for the second question? I will. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to read this. So if I can understand, so I saw that people following the process are only 7%, and active participants are 25%. Okay, 25% active participant, 7% following the process, and I don't see the rest of the figures. Oh, sorry, yep. And 28%, so a third, almost a third, didn't know about that. And 38% have heard about this but don't know much. Okay, that proves that we still have work to do in order to have this action better known. All right, then there is a question of the chat about the research evaluation, research assessment, and there is actually maybe the technical team can show the answer from Alessandra Bacicotti about where you can find this information about the new research assessment. This website is called Quora. Yes, that's it. This is now shown. So you can go there, and this is a full information about the new research assessment method proposed. And many universities have already signed this, acknowledge actually this method of new assessment. All right, so I think the time is now the right one to go to the next session, and I will give the floor to myself because I'm presenting the first session, which is about intellectual asset management. So this session will be moderated by our friend Michel Moran, and I guess Michel should be probably put on the screen as well. And so I'm going to share my slides now about what we did in the community of practice for the smart use of IP, and there were different subgroups. 6 of them are going to be presented now, and the first one is about intellectual assessment. Intellectual. Okay.
Intellectual asset management.
Yeah, asset management. Sorry, I'm reading in the same time how to share my presentation. Oh my God. So now he's asking for my password. Very okay. Looks great. Oh Jesus. I'm afraid that I will have to quit and okay. Ah, there it comes. Sorry. There we go. Okay, Alita, is there any way you can share my presentation? I'm sorry because the software asked me to start again. So, or maybe we could start with I will disconnect and connect again, and maybe we could start with the second room that Rin is going to present, if you don't mind, because I need to restart. Is that okay with you, Michel and Rin?
Yes, we have no choice.
Sorry. So is Rin there and connected?
Yes, Rin is there and connected, and she's ready to start.
Sorry for that. Okay, I disconnect
but,
and
of course, we this first session is about the 3 first subgroups, about the 8th subgroup of the work led by Yanis, and we can of course mix the things. It's all, and if to so you are not more stressed. If we're in the subgroup 2, that means IP skills and training is ready, we can start with her. From Estonia, the connection is better than from Luxembourg. It's well known. Rin, are you ready? I see you. We don't hear you because you have to unmute your microphone.
Yes.
It's better there. And if you can share your slides.
Yeah, but it seems there's a slight problem with the PowerPoint presentation, but I can show you. Now I can't see. Now I can only show the slides, but no activities. So it's just the PDF. But I think it's fine. So I can start.
Yeah, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. I just mentioned previously to my colleagues that it's good to go second because then you know what the others, how they are doing their presentation. So now I'm still going first, but I think it's fine. So yeah, I was part of the IP skills and the training group and in the drafting team, and I think the topic is still can also go first, because it is very important, like Yanis also said, that we need to educate and what this knowledge valorization is, and spread the knowledge. So it's actually the skills and training is very important part of this. So like it was said, that it was a novel experience to have this kind of big community to come together. And when I saw this call for the volunteers to show interest, there were with some questions. Why are you interested? And I signed up. I'm not a long-time expert in the field, but I am an expert in teaching. And so I thought that why not? Because it seemed to me that the topic of ISP skills and training from the inside, as a researcher, I could maybe help there. And there was also an option to participate not only on the community, but as a participant in the drafting team. And I thought, yes, no, it's probably a lot of work. And I said, okay, I'll try, because maybe I can contribute a bit more in that sense. And so here are these groups that we have for these the subgroups for these recommendations that we were trying to draft. You can see there are different groups, and I was the second one, the IP skills and training, and I think it was a good choice. And how this was put together, how we worked, because I think right now a lot of you are not even aware of what we did. So I think it's a good to let you know that for each of these subgroups we had a drafting tandem, so 2 people. I was the lucky one. I think I won a lottery because I had a Laura McDonald as my second partner in the team. So it was definitely a lucky one, and I think we had quite a strong team and supported each other. And then each group also had 18 members, so who helped us, or in a way they were giving an input, and then we had to work it out, and we were like a connection between the subgroup and the European Commission, and they really helped, like they were really leading it, and so it was like 3 different groups of people in that sense, but still all working together. So this is how we worked, and the responsibilities were shared in that sense that the drafting team, like I said, we had to gather all the information from the subgroup. So the Commission, they told us what we have to do, and then we did, and we had meetings which was very nicely organized, and we had the drafting team meetings bi-weekly, and also all the meetings with all the people, so everybody had a chance not only to give an input to your subgroup but also to the subgroup of the others. So even though we worked in subgroups, but it was still possible to share the knowledge. And the drafting team really had to be on time. The time schedule was very, very tight, and we were changing it a bit in the process because there was a lot of people and a lot of input, or in some cases not enough input, so we had to wait for more. So sometimes it was needed to change this time. And I would say that the responsibility level of the drafting team was very high. It was not an easy because the members in these subgroups, they're real experts. They are really interested, and they have a lot of knowledge, and to be in between and put all this together in a manageable way it's quite a challenge. So unfortunately now it's all at once in the screen because I don't have a PowerPoint, but just to briefly explain how this road towards this recommendation went, was that the first step was that we gathered just like a brainstorm. Basically, the first step was just brainstorming to give out our good ideas, the knowledges that we definitely want to share, what we think is important. Then the next step was to put these ideas into more tangible recommendations. So had to write them up. Then in the third step, we had to rank them. So, okay, you had all these really good recommendations, but is there some kind of ranking system? Are there some more important than the others? And you see here this head here, and it's here because this was definitely the hardest step to kind of figure out which recommendations are the key aspects for that specific subgroup. So that took, I would say this took quite some time. And then we had this process of everybody overviewing these recommendations, commenting, and also in that step we saw some of, like, there were overlaps between the subgroups, but I think it's quite normal because there are the same things important in different aspects or in different subgroups. So it was a good way to kind of see what are the overlaps, and also the wordings were corrected. And then we also got feedback from the Commission, and we definitely worked on those and tried to put them together. And then we ended up with this final draft for these recommendations. And this stars note here that there, like you see here, that the input from the Commission was significant, and like Yannis said also, that it was a lot of work for them as well. And I can definitely imagine if it was just so much work for the one subgroup, that to manage all of these. And you can see visually here this as well. So what are some of the lessons learned from this whole process? Because I think for us it was quite simple. The field itself, the IP skills and development, we know training, we understand that it is important. And the pros was that there were so many different people from different fields giving their input and their experience in the field. If not, I was new, but there are a lot of people who definitely aren't. There were some discussions, of course, and we had a very clear plan what we were doing, and I think this helped because Commission had this guideline for us. So it was not just, oh, let's come together and start putting these recommendations down, but it was very clearly written out for us. And the drafting team was a good input with 2 people, because they had to really be like a mediator, because there were a lot of how to say, like rough thoughts also from the members, but somebody had to kind of put them into a more on maybe like clear way. And definitely the Commission's involvement kept the ball rolling, and it was very important, and I definitely was a good part. But also there are some things to learn. So what could be done if these kinds of things are done in the future? What could be done differently? So I do think we had some problems with certain groups, but there were not enough people who were active, and they were struggling the drafting team was struggling to get this information in. And you might hear that in some of these next presentations. I don't think we had, but I think our topic is also maybe more broad and not as difficult. And there was overlapping, which is maybe not necessarily bad, but they made things somewhat complicated to really grasp everything, at least on the level of where we were working. And also the recommendation, like I said, we almost had to choose out of like 20 recommendations, maybe like 3, and then you saw that some groups were not doing it, and I think maybe some recommendations were left out, and so it was struggling to really prioritize these recommendations. But I think Commission really did, in the end, did that work for us, because maybe as an expert we didn't really were very successful there with to narrow our wishes down. And maybe I don't think it was in our group, but it could be that in these situations that some voices of the strongest people could be heard more. And I would also say the con is that the drafting team were really under pressure. It was not an easy job, and maybe, I mean, we probably were aware it's a lot of work, but I wasn't definitely aware that it would be that much work. So maybe that also is something that could be figured out better in the future. And also, I think one of the biggest con is that I am, and I hope all these other very good ideas, the materials, the links, there was a lot of very, very good advice and details and links that were left behind, in a sense that maybe they weren't gathered. And I understand that for this specific purpose, they were not appropriate, but still maybe in the future, they are definitely very valuable information, because we had all these tens and 20, like a lot of people, experts coming together and putting their thoughts and ideas in, and it would be sad if this would be left behind. So yes, so our recommendations went into the section of investing in education and training, and just some of the, just to showcase a few of them. They may be now in the final draft, might be worded a little bit differently, but definitely, and some of the recommendations were put together with others, so they're like interchangeable. So you will see that, and a lot of these recommendations were aimed for the universities and public research organizations, that how we should definitely train, and not only in IP, but in generally in like entrepreneurship, like business, marketing, spin-off. So there's negotiations, that there are also other fields related that we definitely need to train in and help, and also yes, so in the university field, so that I think was one of the things as well, that to raise awareness and different trainings and different materials, put them together and make them available. And that's it. And again, I would really like to thank Laura, because that she really helped a lot, and helped when I thought that I can't really pull through all this information. So with her, because she had a lot of experience in the field, that definitely helped our drafting team. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Rin, for this very interesting testimonial. I would like direct to add some comments about the presentations in general today. In fact, the purpose of the presentation of each subgroup is not to present the recommendation itself or themselves, but is to share their experience about the process, as it was explained by Yanis and also Rin, is to have it was a new experience to embed in the process a community. And in fact, the community was a little larger than 100 volunteers, and the volunteers were split in 8 subgroups with two drafting members. So 8 groups and 2 drafting members each group. That means 16 drafting members. So the drafting team was 16 people. And indeed, the pressure on these people was higher than expected. So for myself, I was also one of the drafters. And because the timing, I personally didn't believe that we could achieve the timing proposed by the Commission, but they did. And then the pressure on the drafting members was higher than expected. But okay, it was It was a great experience also for this, because we cannot, of course, wait or work during 1 or 2 years just to give some recommendations. So it's and the second is also there. So the interaction between this subgroup is also one of the experience to be shared during this session. I remind the audience, of course, there is a question time after the presentation. So I ask if Christophe is ready, and the techniques also ready to share his slides. We don't hear you, Christophe.
Yeah, surprisingly
yes.
enough, I am ready, in spite of the fact that Google decided it was the best moment to update all my softwares today. Okay, can you hear me? Yeah.
We hear you.
Okay.
Can you share your slides?
I will try right now.
You are trying.
Yeah. Okay, there we go.
So and Christophe was in the drafting team of the subgroup IP asset management and intellect asset management. Okay, Christophe, the first is yours.
Great. Do you see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah, great. So thanks to Rin, because she really showed all the process and all the questions. And
Yep.
I agree with you, Michel. We are not going to present again the content, but I would need actually to go back to some of the contents to explain what happened within the group. And this is also linked to one of the questions that arose in the chat about what the group decided to discuss and propose and was not kept at the end of the day in the guidelines. I think this is also quite representative and interesting. So I'm going to try to tell some words about that. But first, I would like to reinforce what Rin was saying. We got strong support, but there were really very heavy loads of work and great expectations. And I agree with you, Michel. It was a bit surprising that we did it eventually, because it was really hard and hours and hours. And this is probably one of the problems in the method. I think many people would have been interested, but really could not find all the time for that. So this is really something we have to think about. Another comment about what was already said. The discussion was interesting. It was not exactly a democratic discussion. You have people who are able to be more convincing than others, of course, or are more present, or have more time, or speak louder, whatever. And so it's very difficult to say this is exactly representative. We are not talking about the majority of people having proposed these recommendations, but at the end of the day, we have something which is quite interesting. And again, I think that should be a living process, so that we should be able to modify what we've done at one time, and I hope the Commission hears that as well. In my group, so it was drafted by James from Enterprise Ireland, and he did an amazing job, probably putting more hours than I did. And in our group, I found that there were many people coming from the innovation ecosystems, I would say, innovation agency, for instance. And we had also, of course, many academics. And this is also one of the comments we can do about these guiding principles. At the same time, we say we want to open the discussion and to include people from the global ecosystem, including people from the private sector, from companies, etc. But I got the impression, once again, because of question of maybe time or identification of the right partners, we were mostly talking within our pre-existing community of innovation ecosystem, including academic one. So this is my feeling. Okay, so I just chose to show what the definition was made about intellectual assets, because this is one of the biggest move, I would say, in this guidelines updating. The main idea is that IP is not enough. So intellectual property is not enough, and we got to consider all assets provided by research. So that is basically everything, which is a bit complicated to deal with because we are talking about any results. Of course, the classical IP tools, patents and so on, but also publication data, practices, methods, business models. So this is extremely wide. Everything cannot be protected, but the main idea is that everything has got value. So now the next question is, how do we extract this value, and how do we manage this value and transform it in impact, basically? Okay, so all the text is about the focus on IP is too narrow. Okay, so we have to manage intellectual assets in a broad sense. That's fine, and then we say, okay, we have to develop strategies, but this is not very practical. So this is also why we expect that the code of practice will help us. But we got a feeling, at least I got a feeling, that we are making beautiful sentences there, and then almost everything is still to invent. Okay, because in spite of the critics towards IP management, and sometimes we are told that we are doing that in the old way. Okay, that's fine. Maybe it's been 50 ways people have been trying to manage IP for knowledge variation. It shouldn't be all forgotten in one sentence. So okay, let's define new strategy for intellectual assets, but let's not forget IP, basically. And then the last thing I would like to comment on this slide is about the need for specific skills. So there again, I think it is very important, but we didn't succeed in getting this in the guiding principles. Skills, people, capacity building. To the opinion of our group, it was really a central thing. And if you read the guidelines, the guiding principles, you won't read that exactly, very precisely. So I'm very happy that Ioannis said again that, for instance, the TTOs are very important actors and they should be supported. And that means bringing new people, training them, etc. So the big principle should not leave on the side the fact that the KT community is at the heart of all these issues. We can talk about new tools, platforms, methods, etc. But if we don't have enough people and enough highly skilled people, it won't work. Okay, so the text goes on about policies and practices. These are all very general considerations. I think this is valuable because it's reinforcing the fact that the state members and the Commission should ensure that policies exist and they are, of course, shared and publicized. An important thing that was discussed in the group is that the fact that sharing these policies is not only amongst our own community. So that means also sharing with the rest of the world, including companies, maybe the men in the street, etc. So this is not an easy task to do, but that led to many discussions within the group. And then, of course, raising awareness is something permanent. I mean, this is a constant need, of course, with that. Then, of course, there is a question of at the same time in the first sentence you will read that we should create benefit for the union. So this is also something very interesting, and the discussions were quite complicated about that. Is knowledge transfer doomed to benefit to China, okay, and the United States? And this is this idea that we put much money in European research and we don't translate it in benefit for Europe. And some countries might consider the first benefit should be for the country itself, or even for some regions. And this is a very complicated discussion. So the final sentence does not translate all the discussions we had in the group. But this is definitely a very important thing. So who are we working for? So who should benefit from the socioeconomic impact? And then there is a second important word, which is sustainability. And this is a very general word. So we all know now that facing the new crisis now, we have to consider sustainability, but it's not clear in this sentence. And personally, I'm not very happy with the sentence, which is too vague. Are we talking about sustainability of our activity, of the knowledge transfer activity, of the economical activity, considering social impact, environment impact, climate change, you name it. So this sentence is very open, but to me, very, very vague. This is one of the issues. Okay. And then we will have two more presentation in the today's session about open science and open innovation. So I'm not going to comment the last aspects of these recommendations, which were done under the intellectual assets management, but of course many of the topics were interlinked, very obviously. So open science and open innovation are very important issues to my point of view, and I think this was also discussed in the group. There there is much confusion about the terms, about the wording. And even when discussing, you probably know in your daily job, when discussing with other stakeholders, there might be confusion between everything open science, open innovation, open source, or whatever. So there is definitely a clear need for mutual understanding and further definition, and of course, very practical use of these new notions, which are rather recent, at least in as long as we talk about knowledge transfer and knowledge valorization. Okay, so these are just two examples of something that we tried to get into the guiding principles, but we didn't succeed. So either they were incorporated in other topics, or they are expected to appear in the code of practice. And I just chose two of them because again, it's about humans. Okay, so empower the TTOs, the KT offices, build capacity, increase skills and resources. I already mentioned that. And the second point that was not kept, not accepted eventually, but that should appear in the code of practice is the question of the incentives for the researchers. And the important discussion was about not only money, not only at the end of the value chain. Of course, sharing royalties is fine, but and that was said before in the discussion, from the very start, there should be an incentive for researchers. So during the career development of the researcher, when they are engaged in these knowledge valorization processes. And that's it for me. So I'm happy to answer your
Thank you,
questions.
Christophe. We have already some question with a quite interesting question already supported by different auditors. Would it be possible to read unedited opinions that did into the we don't appear in the final recommendations? Of course, to avoid the situation was expressed by Rin that the loudest voices maybe have more, let's say, influence in the recommendation. I'm not sure at the end that because the recommendations are not are still more global in general. There are of course there were some discussion about, let's say, details. And but the question is interesting, and in fact, as the process was led by the Commission through a hosted platform in the Commission system, this should be available on the computer system of the EU. And how to have access, we have to ask, and I see the comment of Laura. Yes, we can as ASTP ask Yanis what could be the way to collect this and to analyze a little with more time to analyze these comments and to see how to, let's say, to have a second line of practices, recommendations or practices we could, as STP, maybe we can produce not against but in addition of what the Commission, of course, on a more, let's say, overview is in position to launch and to edit. And in these comments, some were very detailed comments, of course. But okay, we have to ask the Commission and Yanis especially to get access to this discussion, and we'll do. I don't know if Yanis is still an auditor or not. He can react, but I don't think so. We had Hannah as a third speaker, and but Hannah is ill today and has asked not to be was not able to present and to but she is even in connection, and she asked a question for hi Anna. You can change your mind and to be if you are ready to present something. There is still some time for you if you are fit enough. But how do you envisage the implementation at national and institutional levels? Of course, as it was explained by Yanis, the next step is to disseminate and to have next year a lot of actions, events and seminars and even of course the issue itself. So the paper issue and the or internet issue of the recommendation, because they should still maybe you can correct me, Laurent. I think the recommendation has to be still to be approved by the let's say the Europe by end of this year in order to launch it officially beginning of next year. That's what I heard from Yanis this morning. And of course, the Commission, as it is a task of the Commission, it is a job of the team of Yanis. There will be a lot of support and ways to let the community aware about this recommendation. I don't know the details, and Yanis didn't spoke a lot about. But that's what I can do. Maybe some colleagues can add other information if they have some.
Michel, I would like to comment. No, I don't have any clear view on how this will be implemented, but there might be some different approach, because if I remember well, the last version in 2008 guiding principle were coming from the Commission, and if I understand well, in that case, this is a recommendation from the member states. So it's actually the presidency who presents it. That means that the member states agree with that. So that makes a difference. It's not the Commission saying to the member states, you should do this and that. It's the member states who voted for a proposal. And so every member state is supposed to agree with that, because it's signed by everybody. Of course, we'll need very practical tools in each country or even in each region. But I think the state of mind is different. You can go to your ministry and say, look, this is what your country signed.
Yes, you are right. There is the decision process, of course, go also through the Council of Prime Ministers, and of course, as soon as it is signed, each country is supposed to implement itself also the recommendations, of course. Governance and education, research, and also industry policies. But we know that it takes some time by this way. So I think that the more rapid way is to let the practitioner the more possible aware, and then to have a bottom-up process instead of a top-down. Yeah, I see another question. I wonder how we can think a new organizational models for our TTOs in order to shift from IP management to intellectual asset management. I actually not exactly understand the question, because for my IP, if IP is just patent, then I understand. But in university, of course, you have know-how, you have image, you have a brand, you have this package is for me intellectual asset. And for me, it's exactly the same. The processes are not the same, but if you have a good know-how, even a good brand of a software, for instance, it's part of the job to disseminate and to transfer also this kind of activity. But maybe I don't understand exactly the question of Alessandra. Alessandra, maybe you can be more precise or more clear.
While Alexandra answers, I can add something. I agree with you, Michel. I think we are doing much more than IP, and this is not new. The question is, do we have enough people to do that? And what we probably have to invent is a set of new ways for valorization. I'm thinking about the data, for instance. Okay, data are become more and more important, more and more valuable. Just take the example of the personal data and personal medical data, very touchy, but very high value. And what I see in my own experience is that we don't have very classical, ready-to-use models for valorization. So the valorization pathway is probably still to define. And I agree with you, Michel. I don't think this is a question of organization. I think this is a question of means and procedures, and of course that will also widen the necessity for identification. Okay, scouting is more complicated. If you just wait for invention disclosure and patents, okay, it's an easy job.
Especially with the rise of artificial intelligence, because you and big data processes, there are a lot of information which are on the shelves, but maybe hopefully also in the computers. And today there are new techniques through artificial intelligence to go through this huge amount of data and to catch out added value for science and for society also. That's one of the working group had to address a little the relationship between open science, so open innovation, IP, and valorization with um, artificial intelligence and also with open science. And maybe we will have more details about the discussion later in this morning. I see a comment from Laura. It still has to be approved formally, but this is different from 2008 because okay, it's not just the Commission but also the Council. That's what you mentioned also, Christophe.
Yeah.
Is have we checked all questions we got? I think so, and we are just on good timing to give back the floor uh, to the headquarters
For coffee?
for coffee. It's now, yes, it's just a 15 minutes break now, and to have another second session with three other subgroups. Okay. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Rin and Christoph, for your presentation, and we expect Hannah will be more fit and available next time. We wish you a good, prompt refit for good health, Hannah. And I give you appointment in 15 minutes in 11:45 for the next session. Thank you all, and see you later.
Okay, so welcome back. I hope everyone had a nice break, a good coffee, and you are now back full of energy for this last session of this morning's event. We will be together for 1 more hour, more or less, and I'm very happy to introduce to you the last panel for today. Let's call it like that. We will be covering three main topics that were part of a discussion within the community of practice, which are really interesting and very relevant. And already, as already anticipated by Christophe, there is still a lot of confusion and misunderstandings around the concepts of open innovation, open science, and all this kind of openness buzzwords. So we will be covering the topic of intellectual property and open innovation, and this will be done by Jörg Scherer, who is the managing director and founder of URIS, a company based in Germany. And I'm not sure that everybody knows, but Jörg is the coordinator of the IP help desk, which we all know. We're very familiar with that. It's very important tool to support IP management, especially in European projects. Then we will have our colleague Erika Brandolino from the University of Venice, who participated in a discussion about joint industry and academia IP management, which is really a relevant topic that we, as we manage every day this kind of situation. So it would be really interesting that we can share some knowledge and experience on that topic. And finally, we will have, hopefully, because I can't see him yet on the screen, but I can imagine he's now trying to join our meeting, Kazik Anhalt from Poland, Senior Advisor Europe for Innovation 360 group, which is, I understand, maybe he can tell us better. It's um, sort of services provided to companies in the innovation area, and he was part of the drafting team of the group which worked on intellectual property and open science, which is really a good topic for discussion, as we are somehow struggling to understand how we can really manage and balance IP management in an open science environment. So I will stop here. So again, as in the previous session, please contribute to the discussion in the chat. You can post the questions even during the presentations. We will have 15 minutes presentation by our colleagues, and then we will have a Q&A session at the end where we can pick up your questions, have some discussion together, and we really look forward to a very interactive session. So please, Jörg, the screen is yours. We can't see you, so maybe if you want to switch on the camera and certainly share your screen with the presentation. I don't think we hear you nor see you, but we did it 2 minutes ago, so I think everything will be fine very soon. We're not lucky today with all the technical means. Ardita, can you maybe help Jörg? Otherwise, we do as in the previous session, we switch the order of the presentations, and we have Erika here who is maybe ready. So I think we can also do that. So we don't have to. So Jörg is more relaxed in trying to find a solution for the connection, as actually the topics are not really. There is no particular order, so we can do the other way around and start with joint industry academia IP. And Erika, please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Alexandra. Oh, no, sorry, but
Oh,
I
no, no,
think
no,
Yoga
no,
is
no way.
sharing
Stop,
his
stop there.
screen.
Okay, so let's be very flexible and we go back to the original program. Jörg, we can see your screen now, but we don't hear you. That's interesting. Okay, so what shall we do?
Shall we try again with the switch in case?
Let's try again with the switch. So please, Jörg, don't share your screen now. Just wait there until Erika is finished. Let's go back then to the switch.
Okay. Okay, can you see my presentation now?
Yes, perfectly fine. We can
Okay,
hear, see you, and see your screen. So go ahead.
great, great. Perfect. Thank you, Alexandra. And I would like also to thank Reen in the first session for sharing the process and the working method we adopted for arriving to a document of draft recommendations for the smart use of intellectual property right, intellectual assets. Sorry. And I would like also to thank Christoph for highlighting the limits of this method and the difficulties encountered in his subgroup, that are almost the same difficulties that we encountered, me and my great pen holder mate, Luis Drogo, in our subgroup. My intent, anyway, is to share with you instead what this experience taught and confirmed to me in my job as innovation promoter at a KT office of a university, public university. So, in fact, while preparing this presentation, and this after some months from the submission of the draft recommendations on our topic, and thinking about the main issues and challenges addressed within our group. And I actually realized that dealing with joint industry academia IP meant basically for me dealing with the full range of issues I encounter in my job daily, and at the same time with a sort of I would like to call it a test case for any strategy for the smart use of intellectual assets. This from definitions of the intellectual assets and the fundamental elements of a possible management strategy, to the valorization and exploitation of research results, passing through the need of awareness and incentives for researchers and for KT staff members, and also addressing cross-cutting themes such as open science, open innovation, industry, and university different interests and missions. This was immediately apparent to me from the topics we decided to focus on in my subgroup, and that are ownership of IP, incentives for researchers, best practices and model of grant of agreement templates for joint IP strategies, IP filing and registration process, while and not the opposite, but together with publication and dissemination, as access rights to background and foreground, which is which can be considered inside ownership of IP, and management of IP for exploitation and impact. That's why I would like to illustrate you my personal interpretation and vision of joint industry academia IP topic as I said, a test case for knowledge transfer action and smart management of IPRs and assets. And I would like to do this by briefly presenting just one draft recommendation proposed by our subgroup per topic, all basically dealing with university-industry collaboration. As for the first subtopic of the subtopic, ownership of IP, and we can consider inside also access rights. The draft recommendation I choose is ownership issues should be addressed early in the progress with intent to be clear regarding the IP ownership and access use of rights on background, foreground, results, as well as any third-party IP that might be relevant regarding the use of the results. Well, we have to say that to be really clear during the negotiation at a very early stage on background and foreground in particular, and in the use of the results of the collaboration, each partner should have appropriate clear IP strategies, so both industry and academia. Researchers should be aware of the IP assets and interests at stake on the benefits of open science, considered as an approach based on open, cooperative work and sharing of knowledge and tools as early as widely as possible in the process. For the other subtopic, the recommendation I choose is clarity for the recommendation, draft recommendation in the subtopic incentives for researchers within the broader topic joint industry academia IP, is clarity and awareness of the applicable rules for researchers when they collaborate with companies or involved in collaborative research should be a priority for academia in particular. So clear rules and incentives to research should be a priority for the academia. The academia should consider to push collaborative research and exchange of knowledge while rewarding their researchers and giving them all the tools for maximizing the impact of the knowledge exchange for the university. So this again means have a clear policies in the institution, a clear strategy within the institution, provide training, and provide dedicated support to researchers. So for the other subtopic, best practices and model agreement templates for joint IP strategies, I choose a very short draft recommendation, which is a results ownership list, including a list of project results and identification of IP owner should be agreed during early stages, again, of joint academia industry projects. So to have a possible results ownership list with the identification of the IP owners assumes to have already forecast and evaluated in some ways those results. And this is, we have to admit, in my experience, this is already difficult when results are received. So much more difficult before starting the collaboration. But this need to have defined and to constantly capture and preserve value with an important effort of analysis, simulation, and evaluation of intellectual assets. Then, for the subtopic IP filing and registration process, besides publications and dissemination, I choose a more specific recommendation on research data, which I think it's could illustrate what I would like to, my interpretation of joint IP as case test for smart use of intellectual assets. And it is promote open access to research data and should be in line with directive, with the European directive, but taking into account restrictions linked to commercial exploitation and intellectual property issues. This recommendation involves, in fact, cross-cutting themes such as university, industry, different interests, and institutional mission, and the opportunity to promote open access, in particular to data that are as said by everyone, a valuable asset to be aware of, while promoting innovation and competitiveness and accelerating the uptake of innovative solutions and to develop new technologies to address the most pressing societal challenges. For the last subtopic, management of IP for exploitation and impact, I choose this recommendation, which is also very specific because it refers to a case where industry wants to exploit an invention. What we should consider, the recommendation is to consider the risk and efforts, the risk of the industry and efforts and balance with the efforts of academia in the royalty negotiation, but considering that academia do not have risk. So the recommendation is to develop a common tool to estimate this risk. Also, this recommendation, I think, involves a sort of travel from IP awareness to valorization, and immediately suggest the need for specific skills and training, both for negotiation and for evaluate IP properly. So getting to my closing remarks. Let's see. No, sorry. Okay. I'm going to do these two closing remarks, taking into consideration my university perspective, I have to say. So, and in particular, the university perspective of my position as innovation promoter in charge of knowledge valorization. And I have to say that this experience in the community of practice suggested to me at the end that there's no right way to manage IP, but there's for sure the possibility of having shared basic principles for a smart way to manage collaboration and joint academia industry projects and the relative IP. And and these basic principles are inside are at the basis of the recommendation we draft as a subgroup. I don't want to wander out of the subject, but I just wanted to say that I think that the key element for this smart use of intellectual assets is the purpose. And the purpose in our case is collaborating and sharing intellectual assets in terms of considered in terms of what it contributes to. That could not be focused only on capture value and maximizing profits, in particular for universities, but it should include and be based on value creation. So intellectual assets are more, as we said, more than intellectual property rights, and we need to stay open to maintain a constant and exchange and collaboration with industrial partners, aware that sharing experiences is the key factor for hybridization and for the creation of an innovative and evolving environment able to respond to the most pressing societal challenges and to the vitality of the European Union ecosystem. So agreeing with fundamental and easy to follow recommendation on joint IP, I think will help a smart negotiation between industry and academia aimed at expanding the pie for both parties and while staying tuned and focused on the purpose. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Erika. Thank you very much. I can imagine that it has been quite challenging, this topic, and I think you really raised and discussed many relevant issues. I know that I said we will ask the questions later, but I have a quick one on. I wanted to ask you. You mentioned the possibility to develop a common tool to estimate the risks that companies have in developing the early stage technologies generated by universities. Could you elaborate more on this proposal to have a common tool? What do you imagine exactly?
This was something that raised from the discussion and then was inserted in another recommendation. I have to say that I don't have the technical capabilities to imagine something in specific because, but maybe this is something where the European Commission can work on. So I think it's sharing. It could be a platform. It could be a platform where you just put some data and you can have risk evaluation. But well, I'm a jurist, so it's difficult for me to understand how this tool could be created and used by the stakeholders.
So it was just, let's say, mentioned, but it was not a particularly elaborated
No, no,
idea.
of
Okay,
course
okay,
not.
that's okay. Thank you so much. I didn't get this point, so that's why I'm asking. Okay, so please, Erica, stay with us. So we will have a further discussion after the other two presentations. Now I can see that Jörg is visible on screen. Can you? Can we try if we can
Yeah.
hear you?
Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yes.
That's
Loud
good.
and
I mean, it's really horrible. The some internet issues here. So just I will try to share my screen now.
yes. So Jörg is part of the subgroup which has been dealing on IP and open innovation. And now we can see your screen.
You can see it now.
It's perfect. We can see full screen, the
So I'm
presentation full screen.
so perfect. So I'm crossing fingers that the internet connection will be stable or the system will be stable. Don't know what happened today. So I have the pleasure just to briefly introduce you to what we did in the subgroup IP and open innovation. And I had the pleasure to work together with my colleague Michel Morand, which whom you know very well. Basically, we had about 18 members in our group, and the rationale about was really to see to what extent open innovation and the protection of intellectual property is becoming a paradox or it goes side by side. So first of all, we cared about, I mean, of course, the definition of open innovation. It implies an innovation ecosystem where ideas and knowledge flow across institutional boundaries. And we all know that there is a variety or a large variety of different, let's say, formats and extents of openness. It definitely implies a willingness to allow knowledge produced within the institution to spill over to others, possibly with the expectation of receiving spillovers from others in return. But in contrast, or at least it looks like a contrast, IPRs are generally designed to exclude others from own ideas, innovations. And then the question is how that goes together. And I mean, that was the question, how can we use actually the existing IP system, the strategies to engage better with open innovation models? And actually, we know that, of course, intellectual property and intellectual property rights can be used in a number of different ways to assist in the management of open innovation. We know that from cross-licensing or just open source models. And we also know that, of course, raising awareness on and skills on IP management is also an enabler to develop successful open innovation strategies. So, and of course, IP ownership and a clear definition of IP ownership enables partners to share intellectual assets without destroying any competitive advantage of the partners being engaged in the OI environment. So, and also we see now in the community that simultaneously, actually, there is an increase on awareness on open innovation, on, let's say, broader markets for technology, and the importance of IP strategies in firms like also startups or SMEs as well. And then, of course, then we had to draft a number of recommendations, as you know, to be used and further in the code of practice. And of course, those are meant, as you know, for researchers, for startups, for SMEs. Some of them are rather generic, are more on the let's say on the strategic level, so that they can be understood and they can be implemented by our community. And so would just like to briefly introduce you to what are the main recommendations we received from the community and the one we selected finally, which might then be brought closer also in the guides. I mean, you see there are some of them are marked in blue. It doesn't mean that the others are less important, but it could also mean that the others are already taken by other subgroups. And of course, that's what the kind of process we did among the subgroups to see, okay, because of course there are there's a little bit of redundancy or of course spillovers from one subgroup to the other. The first field of action was that we defined, or let's have a look at how to define open innovation in relation to IP management, to make it clear that open innovation is somehow different, of course, from open science, from open source, and so on. And then we relate it to an existing, or rather recent, standard, let's say, open innovation also. Definition used in ISO. I think that was also brought up by our colleague Eugene Sweeney. So it's actually defined as the process of the management for information and knowledge sharing flows across the boundaries of the organization with regard to innovation. And of course, there are also a number of very generic, let's say, criteria linked to the definition. Like it offers the opportunity to leverage IP through a collaborative process involving several partners. And we also discussed the term of open innovation value network, because this is actually what it is about. It brings together a variety of different stakeholders from different areas of expertise and different fields of experience all along the innovation value chain. And of course, it should be very clear, and this is also what the guide will emphasize on, that IP and IP management should not be viewed at all as inconsistent with the principles of openness or with the principles of open innovation more particular. Then we discussed, okay, what are the commitments and the preconditions to open innovation partnership models? And it was very clear that all partners along the table need to develop a good understanding of the different motivation, the interest, and the constraints of all the parties involved. And actually, the idea is to define the points of convergence for all the stakeholders in that open innovation value network, and to ensure equitable framework conditions for all partners engaged, not only for the collaboration within the network, but also for the potential exploitation pathways beyond, let's say, the collaboration. And of course, to be very open and aware of the multiple ways to use IP for open innovation, and also to see what are different ways to redistribute the generated value among the interests and the motivation, and let's say the typical profile of the actor involved. And also it should be clear that for some of the parties, IP ownership might not be the priority. And of course, we should have a flexible system of licensing models in order to effectively balance the interests of the different partners to establish win-win situations among all the parties involved. Co-creation approaches for knowledge exchange, of course, is a key element of open innovation. Partnership models, and of course it's also based on different kind of agreements. I mean, we discussed, okay, what are the relevant agreements, which you also definitely know very well from your day-to-day work, definitions on background, on ownership, on joint ownership, what is the scope of collaboration, what are the exploitation pathways, what might be agreements, whatever, in order to set up spin-off activities or licensing agreements and so on. And of course, all the parties involved should have a clear idea that there is a good sense of, let's say, trust through kind of confidentiality agreements, and that of course it also relates to what we've seen later, to awareness among the scientists, like the scientists, researchers, but also the startups and the SMEs, of course, to ensure that there is a trustful field of collaboration. We also say that open innovation are quite a good setting in order to ensure that cross-domain interoperability, knowledge transfer methodologies, and ontologies are aligned according to the different players in the field. And of course, how internal, let's say, inventions, knowledge, innovations could be made available to others, and what are the proper means to do so. And of course, then a next field was to collect and to gather recommendations about IP management and governance in collaborative research environments. First of all, what we brought to the attention of the Commission was there is a need to establish systems for attribution regardless of the originated provenance. Whatever the partners come from academia, from the smaller companies, the larger corporates, and equitable governance in the network should be ensured so that all the partners have their role in the OI environment. And finally, also best management, IP management practices to share knowledge and partnerships for the different fields of use, because I mean, this is one of the strengths of OI environments, that IP can be leveraged from to be used in different fields of application or in different geographical areas. There is a need in order for, let's say, also the appointment of a mutually agreed professional IP manager, to have agreed rules and definitions for IP ownership. I mean, that was also brought forward by my colleagues before. To have clearly defined roles for who's going to bring the innovations closer to market. And of course, in particular, also for public organizations, it's important that state aid implications of IP valorization pathways are properly considered. When it comes to licensing issues, again, it was mentioned, and this is a clear recommendations for, I mean, researchers, startups, SMEs involved, that there should be clear and transparent tracking of IP provenance. There should be also a view on different licensing models, which are also understanding what is the role of IP protection, IP management, for proper licensing. And of course, it should in particular also consider that there are IP licensing strategies which might also consider multiple different IP components. And of course, there should be best practice in the use and to make use of available IP management tools, value maps, valuation of IP, freedom to operate, patent mappings, and so on. Should be definitely also considered to see how cross-licensing and to see for complementary IP outside the corporation could also increase the value of the open innovation network. That also relates to the potential role of standards, essential patents, and of course, for software-related inventions, how open source models could also bring, let's say, a value to the exploitation of the outputs of the collaboration. Last but not least, I mean, definitely also there is a strong need, and that might also be, of course, a good play field also for people or professionals in technology transfer. Is that, of course, there is a need for better IP awareness, education, training on the use of IP in open innovation environments. So first of all, people should have a better understanding to see how openness can be balanced with controlling of IP, and to understand IP as a platform for openness, as the controlled assets makes it possible to be open and to collaborate with others, and thereby increase the valorization of the outputs of the collaboration. And also to embed IP awareness building in the IP innovation and the IP registration processes of the network. So it was strengthened that also the player should learn rather by doing, just only to show them how to do it. Developing licensing negotiation skills in OI environments. It's definitely a field in which I would also see that also the colleagues from ASTP might be quite be strongly involved. To gain a comprehensive understanding of value creation strategies to be derived from the different IP or IP right formats, like know-how, copyright, or registered IP. And last but not least, it was strengthened that, of course, there are already there is an existing European-wide innovation advisory system with many services funded by the European Commission, like the help desk, but also other initiatives like the Horizon IP Scan or the Enterprise Europe Network or the SME Fund, but of course also the offers represented by the ASTP community. And I think that's also something which should find a way to be mentioned in the guide. So that's basically what we discussed in our, let's say, subgroup, and I'm happy to discuss and to share
Thank you.
findings and other aspects of the discussion with the community today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jörg. It was a very comprehensive presentation, and I really think you touched upon very relevant issues that we have to manage when we deal with intellectual property management in an open innovation environment. I was just wondering, quick question, did you happen to talk about also um, managing IP when students are involved in open innovation activities? I can imagine, like, the challenges that are often published by companies, by other institutions where students are also involved. I can't see you anymore. I hope you're still there. Okay. It's only me now. um, I was just asking the question to facilitate the transition from your presentation to Kazik's presentation. Okay, no worries. We will pick up the questions later. Maybe Arlita, after Kazik's presentation, you can put the three speakers together again on screen and we can have some short discussion, because I see we are a little bit late on the program. So hi Kazik, welcome. I hope
Good
everything is fine.
afternoon,
Today it's
colleagues.
today it's been quite challenging in technical terms, but we managed to survive up to now. So I'm happy to leave you the screen and to present together with the outcome of our discussion in the group. I was also part of this group working on IP and open science, although was not so active as you were. You were part of the drafting team, so thank you for all the work you have done. It was not easy, I can tell myself, because I've been part of this community. So please, Kazik, if you have, if you want to share your slides and introduce the topic, thank you.
Can you see my slides, or do you share slides, or should I do that somehow?
If you can do that, there is an arrow in the bottom. You can click it and share your screen with the slides. This is what the others have done.
Okay. Now I have it. I think. Can you see that now?
Yes.
Okay.
If you can put that in the presentation mode, maybe it's.
Yes, I'll do. Okay. So now that should be better.
I still see the other format.
Okay. All right. For some reason, I see a presentation mode. I mean, full screen.
Okay.
And I think that was the same situation with York prior to my presentation, that I couldn't also see full screen from the York side, just in that mode.
Okay. So Arlita says that maybe you are using two screens. That's why. Is that the reason? But in any case, we can see that it's a bit small, but I think we can manage this. We don't want to waste more
Okay.
time on this. So please go ahead. It's okay.
Sorry about these technical problems. As you, Alessandra, mentioned, in the whole community, because that's well worthy to mention, accounted over, I think that was over 100 technology transfer professionals and people who are active in the field of IP, put it simply. One of the subgroup, one of 9 subgroups, was dedicated to open science, and that was also composed of over 20 individuals, professionals dedicated to different aspects of technology transfer. Amongst them, myself, in my humble position, and also iBook Semerci, and I would like to grant her with lots of warm, because she did exceptional job connecting all people in or all ideas in one concept. The concept of open science we defined obviously as open as possible and as closed as necessary. You will see this phrase later on during the presentation. First of all, we also defined or tried to define what is open science, open access, intellectual property, result, and ownership. And in that context, we obviously supported ourselves by existing documents from Horizon Europe, introduced by European Commission, and also UNESCO guidelines on open science and so on. We, from the very beginning, we established that open science is a tool or mechanism that shall contribute equally to scientific to sharing scientific results to all interested parties. We call them stakeholders. They include obviously companies, startups, other scientific community, but also civic society, represented for NGOs, for cities, for regional authorities, and maybe hospitals also, because they serve public role. So that was what stood behind our way of thinking on open science. We also match-make open science to open innovation in this context, that we believe that they are complementary issues, and open innovation can't fully exhaust its possibilities without open science, and vice versa. So we were, from the very beginning, we're also trying to find out whether kind of e-platform would be needed when scientific results might be shared to the stakeholders that I have specified already. So that was vexing question: how we can match science and innovation for the purpose. I mean, an open innovation and open science for the purpose of new products, new services that has or that have contributive value to society, for instance, or for the business itself. Obviously, lots of stress was put on necessity of scientific results protection, and that was in context of IP. Obviously, we see data, all scientific data that may be a result of or outcome of scientific work as transparent and also possible to reach by ordinary people who are interested in those scientific results. But whenever trade secrets or any other definitions are involved, then we emphasized that that there should be IP protection for those results. Again, in context of open innovation, I personally believe that there is a strong need for better elaboration, how we can both merge those instruments or mechanisms for the purpose of startup ecosystem development in Europe, because sometimes, and that we also discussed that during the course of our work within the group, that some startups may not only need, I would say, open innovation on commercial side. I mean, open innovation from open innovation from movers and shakers like large corporations, but they may also contribute with their services product and products once they have access to open science. So because we know that all of those, especially in deep tech sector startups, they are very much research intensive. So this knowledge from open science to combine together with open innovation from corporations may make our startups more comfortable and better prepared for the market expansion once they have support from the all tools.
Kazik, sorry. Could you try again to put the slides full screen by clicking the button that you have the bottom?
Yes, I did. Maybe I did it again. Maybe I do
Yeah,
it
please, because the
again.
colleagues are writing in the chat that they would prefer to see the slides bigger, and so we can more easily follow your speech.
Yes.
Sorry for interrupting you.
No, that's no problem at all. Okay, I can do it this way.
In any case, the slides will be available.
For some reason, I can't share this
Okay.
slide with you. I've seen it was shared for a while, but now it faded again.
Okay, no worries. Let's go back then to the previous presentation. For the colleagues, I would like to say that the slides will certainly be made available for the participants. So no worries, even if you couldn't follow exactly all the information during the presentation, you will have the possibility to catch up later. So please, Kazik, if you can come to your conclusions, as we are a little bit late.
Sorry again. I tried on. I'm getting just now some hints how to do it, but it still doesn't work.
Okay, no worries. Let's go on as before, and yeah. Now we can't see anything at all, just yourself. Okay.
Okay. Yes. I can see that.
Yeah. Sorry for interrupting you. It was not such a good idea.
I'm sorry about that, but I hopefully you will share this presentation with all interested
Yes.
members of our community. After all,
Of course we will.
thank you.
But, but would you like to finish your presentation, or was it already finished? Sorry, I thought there
Well,
was still more to
just
come.
like the last words,
Okay.
we during our conversation, our work within the groups, we were always stressing a necessity to build a bridge between open science and open innovation. And I believe my colleagues in open innovation share this opinion also, because those two can't exist without each other. They are complementary and they bring real value for those entrepreneurial spirit that want to use both results of open science and openness of innovation channels within the large corporations. So we believe strongly just our outcome would be that open science and open innovation are both the same. They are different types, obviously, but they need to collaborate and match make for the purpose of entrepreneurial ecosystem in Europe.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Very interesting point. I would like to, if I may, maybe call back Jörg and Erika and Kazik. We all can be all together here just to answer quickly a couple of interesting questions that were posted in the chat. And I must say that I had myself a similar question. So Annette is asking, I would be interested to hear your thoughts on how we best balance need and right to publish research results with know-how as an IP asset. I don't know if maybe Jörg or Kazik, you want to comment on this? Connected to this, while you think of a possible answer, Leah is mentioning that throughout the day, no one has addressed trade secret as a form of IP protection. But of course, most know-how is, and it is the most common form in industry. Has any committee addressed this directly? So this issue of trade secret in relation to the open science approach and in the open innovation environment is definitely an issue in my experience. So please, Kazik or Jörg or even Erika, is really nice if you can just spend 1 minute on this.
Maybe it can start because I think I put also something in the already in the chat about it. I mean, there was the definition of the subgroups in the community of practice was not done in a way that we said we had some specific subgroups focusing on specific types of IP protection. So there was a clear understanding from the side of the Commission also that whenever you cover specific aspects of IP strategy, it should see IP protection in a very broad sense. So you should not leave something out, but also you should not focus, for example, too much on patenting on whatever. So I have to say that, of course, we know that trade secrets is a very common and a very useful tool in order to develop, let's say, to make use of your intellectual assets. And of course, I think it has been addressed in a number of recommendations, and of course, you will also see that in the guide. That in particular, also when it gets to the companies, that how to define IP strategies also by the effective use of trade secrets is definitely something which has been addressed by the community for praxis. Besides the fact that maybe it has not been mentioned today, so that was just a first comment of my side, and then maybe my colleagues can answer to the next question.
Well, if I can, we also addressed the trade
Erika?
secret issue, but as an issue of and that should be considered in the negotiation phase. So the constant balance between the both interests is at stake. So also the balance between trade secret and the publication needs of the university.
Okay, thank you very much. Kazika has left for some reason, so we can't hear his opinion. I think we've been discussing about really very, very important issues that would deserve more time and I think more discussion. And I really welcome any of the participants here to think about um, uh, how ASTP can support this. We have been discussing about the need to raise more awareness, to create more awareness, to really further discuss about these open concepts and how they can affect our daily job, how we can better work in these open environments. This is something we have to learn. This is my experience. So I really encourage you to provide suggestions to ASTP how we can better support technology transfer people, knowledge transfer professionals to in this transition towards a wider approach to knowledge valorization in with particular reference to open innovation and open science environments. So having said that, I think I could pass the floor to Smilka for her closing words today, and thank you very much to the speakers in this session. I really hope there will be more opportunities to discuss about these topics. So thank you, and please, Smilka, I really took some of your time. Sorry for this, but these technical problems today have been quite important.
Yes, hi everyone. It's not late. Actually, we are just on time for the session. I would just like to show the question that was in a Q&A session showed from Christina. So yeah, Lita just showed it. So that belongs to still your session. Alessandra, if anyone from the previous session can answer this or comment on this, please do so. And then I will start my final discussion.
Okay, sorry, I hadn't seen this question. So maybe this is for Jörg, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, there are a number of studies around us. I mean, also from the different IP authorities like the EIPO or the EPO, which really get more and more into the topic of what are current trends in open innovation. And we see that, and I was just presenting it, actually we see not that more and more emphasis is also given on open innovation environments. Sometimes it's really very specific in some specific types of technology like software. But we see that people get more aware that, of course, inventions cannot be made more or less by one institution by its own. There is definitely a need for more engagement on the different, let's say, also level of the innovation chain. So we see that not only in the creation of knowledge, I think, but also when it comes to the exploitation pathways. I think there is definitely a trend, and we see that more and more publications, more and more studies are getting on that. The larger corporates are more focusing on open innovation concepts. So I would see there is definitely a strong growth in the field.
Thank you. Thank you, Jörg.
Thank you, Jörg. And thank you for all the presenters today. We all faced lots of technical issues beyond so you managed it all. And I hope that next time it will be less of the problem with internet all over Europe. So we really covered many aspects of the ongoing new policy preparation process together with the European Commission, which we are collaborating with lately very, very strongly, and jointly are working on this policies. And as you could see, the whole knowledge transfer environment is included in this process, which we think it's really, really good. So we are looking all for the best solutions for all the stakeholders, but primarily to jointly improve Europe's output in this respect of transferring the research results towards the whole society, industry, economy, and so on. We were really happy to hear about the capacity building initiatives from various work programs within the Horizon Europe, which is really important in this changing environment. And yeah, we also would like you that you reach to us as a ASTP community, the knowledge transfer professionals and practitioners at any moment. Please join us or ask us or involve us in all the issues you may encounter. So if there are any other questions from the audience or any comments from the speakers, please, the floor is yours. And then we will close the session. There are so many tools here, so I'm checking, but it seems that we actually covered everything. I also just wanted to address the fact that almost 2/3 of today's audience were not much aware or didn't even know about the guiding principles and the ongoing process of code of practice. So we thought and we think that and hope that you learned about this today from the actually initiators and the generators of these practices. So thank you all for joining us today, and we hope that we open some new windows to this session. Thank you all.